You could all join me in giving a round of applause for Nick from the Tank Museum.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for coming along to listen to me. That's pretty impressive. So I am Nick Wyness, Head of Marketing at the Tank Museum. We're down in Dorset. And just to make absolutely clear, when I say tanks, I'm talking about military tanks, not petrol tanks, septic tanks, fuel tanks, fish tanks. Has anyone been to the Tank Museum? Good, that's a pretty decent proportion. Don't often see quite a large proportion as that. I won't hold it against the rest of you though, because in the past, a museum could only offer value by dragging visitors through the front door. But today we can take the museum to the user and still generate revenue. And this is going to be a look at how in an increasingly uncertain world, we've been building audiences and financial resilience, overcoming our geographic limitations to create an online brand with a global reach. We survived COVID on this strategy, and whilst a lot of organizations went online during COVID, it seemed like most of them were kind of keen to get back to normal as soon as they could, but not us. Because it always feels like the next... Oh, hang on a minute. It always feels like the next global catastrophe could just be just around the corner. Now, I can't think of any reason in particular why that might be. Can you think? No, me neither. So for those who don't know, the Tank Museum holds the world's finest collection of tanks. We're a registered charity and a registered museum that attracts around 225,000 visitors per year, but our rural location is a barrier to significant growth. Our neighbors here in Bovington are the Army, the monkeys at Monkey World, and no word of a lie, the abandoned nuclear power plant. So we have tanks, monkeys, and nuclear waste all in close proximity. Just saying, don't have nightmares. What would Charlton Heston say about that? Anyway, here we are in the middle of nowhere. Getting here is increasingly expensive, and it doesn't look like that's going to get any easier. So to challenge this, we've been creating high quality content for social media to make our collections and stories accessible to a global audience, and using this platform to build a new revenue stream. All in line with our mission, which is to tell the story of the tank and the people that served in them. On YouTube, we have just under 800,000 subscribers and 200 million channel views. We're currently averaging 5 million views and 374,000 hours of watch time every single month, which I'm sure you'll agree, for a museum, particularly a regimental provincial museum like us, is an incredible engagement rate. And last year, we generated almost 30% of our total turnover online from non-visitors. And yes, we do this all for free. There is no paywall, because the money and effort we put into this upfront is the investment in the objective. But an investment like this in organizations like ours could be considered a big risk. And that's what can stop it happening, with opposition usually supported by two arguments. The first one being, if we give it all away online, it will devalue the museum experience. The second one being, if we give it all away for free, then people won't visit. Has anyone else heard those arguments in their organizations before? I certainly have, and occasionally I still do. But that's all just nonsense, and here's why. Take the Glastonbury Festival. It's televised by the BBC in gratuitous detail and broadcast to a global audience. But that doesn't stop it being a sellout every year, despite the extortionate ticket price, because nothing can replace the experience of actually being there. So the content generated at the festival is complementary to it and not a substitute for it. And then there's the benefit of brand projection, as these global audiences have a positive experience of the festival, learning about its ethos and its values without having to set a single foot in a muddy Somerset field. But if muddy Somerset fields are your thing, watching on TV doesn't make them any less desirable. In fact, the opposite seems to be true. And that's why this model works. So I'm going to outline the four-part strategy that's allowing us to benefit from what some call the creator economy. Firstly, Firstly, we use social media to get attention and create engagement in our story and our purpose. Secondly, we acquire subscribers and views, interacting with our audience to learn about them and gain insights. And then third, we deepen relationships by encouraging further consumption and participation. And finally, we encourage advocacy and financial support. Attention is generated by the impact of the content we create, so it needs to be good. But when we say good content, what we really mean is good for our target audience, accepting that what is good for some will be completely irrelevant to others. We're not creating for everyone, and no one who is successful on YouTube is trying to. Some of you will have heard of YouTube sensation Mr. Beast with 257 million subscribers and 48 billion channel views. But if you've not heard of him, you're probably not the target audience, so he would be irrelevant to you anyway. But if you're interested in tanks, you are likely to encounter our YouTube channel at some point. It's just that more people are into Mr. Beast than are into tanks. But that's not stopping us being successful, because success is relative. So, no matter what the subject, there are 7 things that I think define good content. Firstly, it's niched. Our niche is defined by our mission, so our audience is composed of those who are specifically interested in the history of armored warfare. And this is a very niche. But the internet is a big ocean with plenty of fish. Next, it's generous. So it's loaded with value for the audience. We're competing with all kinds of content creators for the attention of people who are scrolling on their phones for a brief hit of entertainment. So we have to earn that attention by being interesting, authoritative, and useful enough to fulfill the needs of that target audience. And like all things, there is a direct relationship between the value you put into something and the value you get out of it. Then it's accessible. So it's presented in line with the conventions that suit the platform and suit that particular audience, making it pleasurable for them to consume. We must take complex subject matter and present it in a way that makes it digestible and entertaining. And it's original. YouTube is competitive. So within our niche, we need to ask what it is that we can offer the audience that others cannot. So for this, we rely on our collection and our expertise in the subject. And it should be consistent. Posting consistently is important, but we also need to be consistent with what we say and how we say it. Being consistent with our topic and the audience's expectations is essential to generate loyalty. So we only talk about the things we know our audience actually like, and not the things that certain stakeholders think they ought to like. And interestingly, this is an area where it seems organizations with a more educational mission can lose touch with their base, and why some institutions have struggled to build such a loyal online following. And finally, good content has to be authentic. Authenticity is a valuable differentiator online where people are suspicious of clickbait, manipulation, and misinformation. Authenticity allows meaningful long-term relationships to develop based on trust and credibility. It's this authenticity that makes content creators like Mr. Beast more relevant and relatable than their mass media counterparts. And that's another thing that explains why they grow such loyal audiences. So today, YouTube audiences have higher expectations and less patience than ever. So every ounce of attention we earn online is an opportunity we cannot afford to waste. So these factors are also really important. First, personality. The presenter can make or break the relationship with the audience. In another example of the importance of authenticity, our presenters are chosen for their subject expertise. They're knowledgeable, they're enthusiastic, and they're passionate, and it absolutely shows. Production standards on YouTube are higher than ever, so we need a team with the right skills and the right gear to make it look and sound great. If the content drags, if it looks boring, or the audio isn't mixed very well, viewers are simply going to click off and find something else to do with their time. And then packaging, titles and thumbnails. represent about 50% of the success of a video, because if no one clicks, no one's actually going to watch. So you need titles and thumbnails that effectively stop people scrolling. So then when you have the audience, you can get to know them and they can get to know you. We gained the trust of our audience and made them feel more connected by responding to their comments and seeking their feedback on the content we created. This made our content better, made us appear more human, and earned us more views, more likes, more subscribers. It also allowed us to learn more about our audiences. Our audience is composed of many constituent parts. All are technically what you might call tank enthusiasts, but each would share one or more corresponding interests with other members of that audience. And understanding this has allowed us to tailor our content and make it relevant to all of these entry points to help keep the audience growing. So by understanding the audience, their needs, and how we can meet them, guided by our brand purpose as a not-for-profit regimental museum, and adopting and evolving with YouTube's best practice conventions, we've grown an online audience that values us. And we've been able to show them that we value them too. And as we've earned trust from this audience, it's begun to evolve into a community. And a community is loyal, and that means we can ask them for support. And having asked them to subscribe, to like, and to share, perhaps next we can ask if we can contact them by email. Then perhaps we can ask them to buy something from us, buy something from our online store, maybe make a donation, become a member. But why would they do that? It's striking that our YouTube audience is very different to our museum visitor profile. It's far more male. It's 90% male rather than the 60% males that come through the front door. And it's far more international. The vast majority, the largest single segment of people watching our YouTube content are based in North America. And it's also a lot younger than the average museum visitor. Now, these are the real subject enthusiasts, whereas our visitors tend to be far more superficially curious in the subject. So in positioning ourselves as the charity that communicates, preserves, and conserves its history for future generations, we've developed a community that has an emotional attachment with us because they believe in our mission and our objectives. You might even call some of them fans. And using the tools of the creator economy, we're starting to unlock the value of this investment. The creator economy allows independent content creators, artists, musicians, podcasters, bloggers, and YouTubers like Mr. Beast to make a living from the audiences they've built and the content they've created. And this is how we're doing. On YouTube, the more viewers you have, the more you earn from the ads that YouTube places on those videos. And last year, we were able to earn £100,000 from this completely passive revenue source. Patreon.com is a platform that allows us to run an online membership scheme which is linked to our content creation. It allows you to create tiers of membership at different price points in exchange for monthly payments. Patreon has become our most successful regular giving scheme ever, and along with other micro donations, YouTube memberships, and Friends memberships, it provides us with almost £250,000 a year. And looking at the locations of our Patreon supporters, you can really see the importance of that overseas audience to us. Anyone who uses YouTube will have seen creators endorsing products for corporate sponsors. And this is an area we, of course, had to tread very carefully as a museum, as there are obvious risks for us in this. But we have a very successful partnership with the producers of this video game. World of Tanks is played by literally millions of people worldwide. You can even play as famous vehicles from the museum's collection. This is Tiger 131, which is arguably our most famous exhibit. World of Tanks, to us, is brand safe, it's relevant, and it's helped us reach an even bigger audience ourselves. So it's very difficult to place a value on this relationship we have with them. But in cash terms, it's got to be worth at least another £100,000 a year. So today, even small YouTubers will have a basic online store selling print-on-demand, t-shirts, mugs, merchandise of various descriptions. Our online shop specifically targets our tank enthusiasts YouTube audience, being filled with the products that would appeal specifically to them. Books, models, and self-developed products like our famous tank slippers, just shown on the screen there, were amongst our biggest sellers and still are. The majority of our traffic to that online shop is referred organically, with relevant products signposted in our content and using the YouTube merch shelf, which you can see down at the bottom there. Our e-commerce has grown from £120,000 in 2019 to 1.7 million gross in 2024, and it's still growing, now dwarfing our on-site retail operation, which for a museum is highly unusual. And an example of how we turned our community into a commercial opportunity was the string of crowdfunded publications we've launched since 2021. When we published a facsimile of this World War II tank operator's manual, translated into English for the first time, our crowdfunding target was smashed with over 1,000 orders at £35 in just 2 days. So this is an example of a project we would never have attempted if we were to rely purely on the footfall of our museum shop for sales, and shows how we're now able to turn some of our archive holdings into saleable products. So what can we say about all this? First, we've shown that it is possible to use social media to achieve charitable objectives at a scale in a financially sustainable way. Good content marketing is, of course, the first step, but remember, good marketing isn't about selling, it's about serving audiences with the things that they value. Second, museums can exist and thrive beyond their own walls. Not only have we made our subjects and stories accessible to people who would never have the chance to visit us down in Dorset, we've built a sustainable international audience with it as well. And third, this audience is a base for advocacy and support, which has allowed us to significantly increase and diversify our income. Our work as online content creators has created a new and distinct business for the Tank Museum, which is entirely sympathetic to our mission and objectives. Now, you could see this as a modern form of fundraising, although it's not entirely philanthropic, it's not entirely transactional either. And the resulting relationship between the Tank Museum and our online community is very different to any other group of stakeholders. In fact, it's got far more in common with the supporters of a football club than those of a traditional museum or gallery. They're geographically diverse, they tend to be younger and more male, they're unlikely to be among the social elites, and they certainly don't consider themselves to be patrons of the arts. And they don't have to visit our grounds to actually support us. But most importantly, I sincerely hope that this example inspires other museums to be curious, to be creative and entrepreneurial in the ways in which they seek out new audiences and define financially sustainable futures for themselves. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Nick. We have got some time for questions. We've got a roaming mic, so maybe just do a sort of show of hands if you've got a question, and we'll try and get through. We've got about sort of 15 minutes to do that. So if you've got questions, now would be the time. So just stick your hand up if you've got one. Should we go? We'll start down at the front here with this lady. We'll just get a microphone to you.
Hi. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, thanks. Could you just tell us, please, who did you get to do your YouTube content? Did you do it in-house or did you outsource that to contractors?
Sorry. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. Who did you get to do your YouTube content? Did you produce that in-house or did you go outside to contractors and production companies?
So we've done it all in-house, the whole thing. It's been evolutionary and we've got a lot better as we've been doing it, and the team that's producing it has grown. In fact, Matt, who's over there right now, actually started as a volunteer and now he runs a department.
Yeah, thank you. We just got one at the back, if that's all right.
So I first engaged with your channel is through YouTube Shorts. I just wanted to ask, because you've got a mix of long form and short form content, how does Shorts affect your sort of ad revenue and sort of your engagement of your platform?
So we produce content for several Shorts platforms. So we're obviously, we have a TikTok as well, and we're putting up short form video on Reels as well. But what we've seen by uploading it on YouTube, of course, they all have slightly different kind of conventions in terms of duration in particular. But really what we've seen with putting shorts on YouTube is it's really helped diversify our audience in terms of the age profile. And that's been really significant in helping our overall channel grow, but also grow at those sort of sub 25 age categories. And before that, obviously, the average age was more around sort of like in that sort of 25 to 35. I think that was the largest signal segment. So yeah, short form video definitely seems to have a greater appeal to younger audiences, but I think that's something we already knew because TikTok is kind of a young person's platform, really.
Brilliant. Thanks for the question. We've got a gentleman on the floor.
Hi. So you sort of said the steps that you would almost recommend were creating that kind of free content platform, then introducing possibly the Patreon side of things once you've built that trust. Is that how it happened for you, or it is? And would you do that the same way if you were to like start from scratch here? Would you start with, I don't know, start with TikTok, for example?
The short answer is yeah, that's probably the right way to do it. And the reason we did it that way actually is because we just had to look at how other independent content creators were actually turning their reach into revenue. And that was, for us, was the objective. As we, we obviously had this access, this growing pool of people. And first of all, we kind of needed to make our content production pay for itself. So in order to do that, it was just easy to use example, well, the likes of Mr. Beast, for example. How are they kind of sustaining themselves? How are they allowing themselves to grow their companies, if you like, that produce their content? But it seems to be that that's the right way to do it. You have to build the audience, you have to build the platform, you have to build that loyalty before you can even think about monetizing it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone at the back? There you go.
Do you have an actual figures of how much this kind of investment you put in? So like the cameras, how big is the team? Like the practicalities and the realities behind it to justify investment, and how much actually investment was put in, please?
So the investment has been over a course of years. So we first started taking YouTube really seriously, I think, in about 2016. It was in 2016 that we realized that we were in a position that we could put out a video every week. In terms of how much we've actually spent, you'd have to ask Matt, actually. He's the guy who buys the gear. But actually, we've never had a big budget. We've done as much as we could on shoestring. We've kind of, even back in 2016, we were making a modest amount of advertising revenue. And it was that money that we were using to buy our stuff. But, as Matt will know, we were always buying secondhand kit. We were keeping our costs as low as possible. We were trying to be as efficient with the money as possible. And it was only through, I think, the demonstration of what the opportunities were that we were able to convince, the director and the trustees that, this was worth investing a little bit more in. And so we picked up a few grants along the way that helped us buy a little bit of extra kit. We got some funding which allowed us to bring in an intern, and that was somebody who was a fresh graduate straight out of Bournemouth Arts Uni from the film production course in their first role, and having a second pair of hands in that kind of film kind of creation thing. But, Matt will tell you, he's a self-taught editor. He was started as a volunteer. He was a volunteer photographer, and basically we made him learn how to make videos.
Well, we've got time for a couple more questions. So if anyone else, we've got a gentleman at the back. Sorry, we're making you do miles here.
Hi there. Does the museum have a membership scheme in itself? And if so, is there much crossover between the Patreon and the membership scheme?
We do. So we have a kind of traditional Friends membership scheme alongside our Patreon. I see them as being targeted at two very different audiences. So the Friends you're most likely to get maximum benefit out of that if you live within a certain radius of the Tank Museum. Because one of the principal benefits of that kind of membership is about, regular visitation in the magazine and that kind of thing. So our traditional friends, they tend to be, based in the UK, but of course, Patreon, the whole point of that really was about trying to encourage people from further afield to donate to the Tank Museum, basically. So there isn't a great deal of crossover, although we do have some people who are based in the UK, they're patrons, but the majority tend to be from outside of the UK. What we're trying to do to try and keep the admin as straightforward as possible is wherever we can keep as many of the benefits aligned at those different tiers, just to make our lives a little bit easier. And our magazine, which we produce, is also increasing quality significantly in recent years. So it's one of those things that it's become something that we can kind of offer and sell to that online audience as well, outside of the membership thing.
Thank you. Have we got a final question? Anybody got one? There we go. Just at the back, just next to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Could you please talk about your Christmas advertisement, which went very viral? It was very successful. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So we have for our e-commerce thing, we were clearly felt we didn't have enough to do, and so since about 2020, I suppose, we thought we would get in the game of the John Lewises of this world and make a Christmas advert, kind of just for fun, really. And so what we did with our Christmas advert was we utilized the people who present our content to kind of be characters in, kind of nice, heartwarming Christmas ads. And it was supposed to just be a bit of fun, really, a little bit of something extra for us to upload on YouTube, around the festive season. But it's been weirdly successful for us in the sense that people are kind of looking forward to us doing it every year. So we've kind of created a bit of a rod for our own backs, really. And so every year we're trying to come up with something new, fun and creative to basically, create ourselves, because we make everything ourselves in-house, and try and make the sets look different. It's fun, and sometimes I wish we hadn't started.
What a brilliant session. Thanks so much for joining us. If you could give Nick a hand and thank him.
Thank you very much.